Thank you, sir. Good evening, students. How are you doing today after a good weekend? Yes. So before we start today's chapter on exemptions, I have as my good students who have been asking questions on the previous class. So as a matter of routine, as a matter of revision, we will start with clarifying the questions of the previous session, and then we'll start today's session. So today's session is very important because exemption is a very lengthy subject. I mean, the topic itself is so lengthy that you have so many exemptions, but important exemptions we'll try to cover. And since there are so many exemptions that you cannot leave the understanding of any exemption because it might come in your MCQs and things, because a simple thing like who is a business facilitator, who is a residential welfare association. These are all small things, but they can create confusion, and it may come in your multiple choice questions. So read and understand all the exemptions. So question from Ishan is, can you explain notification 10 and different rates for housing project? Okay, so what is relevant for us is what we will read. I'll just take out the relevant pages. Yeah, so for housing projects, you have different rates if it is a affordable housing and if it's a non-affordable housing. Okay, there's no reference of notification number 10, Ishan. So you're asking different rates for housing project. So there are two rates for housing project. One, if it is an affordable housing, and if it's a non-affordable housing. Affordable housing means where the people with small income are treated as affordable housing. The rate for GST is 1% in that case. And in case of anything other than affordable housing, the rate is 5%. So where it is, in both the cases, input tax credit is not available, and the rate is 1% for affordable housing. On what basis is a house treated as affordable housing? Where the area, the square meter of that property is less than 60 square meters and 90 square meters in case of a non-metro. So for metros, it is 60, for non-metros, 90 square meters, and the price of the house is less than 45 lakhs. Okay, so there the rate is 1% and 5% in all other cases. So that is the rate on housing projects. Next, who is a casual taxable person? A casual taxable person refers to a dealer who is not getting registered in the same state. He's going to a different state and getting registered. Like if I am a resident of Karnataka, I am going to Tamil Nadu and getting the registration there. So why will I get registration there? If I have some event over there, some kind of an exhibition over there, or any kind of business which is for a short-term purpose and not for a long-term purpose. If it's a long-term purpose, then I will go there, take up an office, take up a go down and register there, because then I have a fixed place of business to do business over there. Based on those documents, I can register in that state. But if I have to go only for a short-term purpose and come back, now this short-term purpose generally refers to 3 months, because casual taxable registration is valid for 3 months and it gets extended to another 3 months. So if I'm going there, then I have to take the registration for a short term. This registration is called as a casual taxable person registration. Now, second question is, which is better for the small trader, normal registration or composition registration? That depends on your business. So if your business gives you more input tax credit, then it will be better that you claim the input tax credit and you charge your customer, so that you claim the credit and you can offset your liability with the input tax credit. Another case is where your price is very fixed and you cannot add any other taxes to it. Their composition would be better, because there you don't claim the credit and you don't charge anything extra, because even if you charge, customer is not going to pay. Your price is all inclusive. right? Like this 199 rupees, 149 rupees. If that rate is fixed, you cannot add any taxes above that. You will have to absorb the cost of the taxes. In that case, composition scheme works better. So it depends from business to business. Third question is, please explain the example in page number 3.47. 3.47, what is the example? Is it the example of Champak, the photographer? Miss Wahida, please confirm, because there are multiple books. So are you asking the example of the photographer Champak? Okay, in the meantime, I'll take question of others. Can you explain validity of composition levy? Well, what is a composition levy is when you are instead of paying a regular tax, you're paying a composition tax. So the validity comes from section 10, where section 10 gives you the option that instead of paying regular taxes, you pay the tax under a composition levy. So the benefit is that you don't have to collect taxes from your customer, you pay it from your own pocket. And you don't have to get the documents of input tax credit, tracking the input tax credit, because in the input tax credit, when you understand the ITC in the next chapter, there is so much of compliance you need to do. So all this compliance is not required because you're not claiming your input tax credit itself. And you don't have to bother for the other customer to pay you, because there only has to pay value of your goods and your input tax credit is not there. So you don't have to charge the customer also on the taxes you paid from your own. So that's the composition tax levy. Okay, yes, Champak example. Okay, I'll share my screen on the example front so that we are on the same page. A photographer, Champak, has commenced providing photography services in Delhi from April this year. His turnover for various quarters is this much: 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, and 20 lakhs. In the given case, since Champak has started the supply of services in the current financial year, his aggregated previous turnover is nil. Correct? Because why do you have to see previous turnover? Because for a service provider or for any composition dealer, we'll have to see the turnover of the previous year. For a supplier of goods, the previous year's turnover should be less than 1.5 crores. And for supplier of services, it should be less than 50 lakhs. So in this case, since he started his business in this year itself, his previous year turnover is nil. Nil means zero, which is below 50 lakhs. So this year he can opt for composition. Consequently, in the current financial year, he is eligible for composition scheme for the services. He becomes eligible for registration when his aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakhs. So once he touches this 20 lakh limit, he has to take registration, the normal registration. Up to 20 lakhs, he does not have to register, right? So while after this 20 lakhs, which means up to April to June, he does not require any registration. Up to 20 lakhs of services, no registration is required. From this point of time, July, he can take the registration. Now he becomes eligible for registration when his aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakhs, right? While registering under GST, he opts for composition scheme for services. For determining his turnover of the state, for the payment of tax under the composition scheme, turnover from April to June quarter shall be excluded. That's when we explained the composition scheme. We said that from the April of the year till the date when he becomes eligible for registration will not be considered. Okay, so for determining his turnover of the state for payment of tax under the composition scheme, April to June quarter shall be excluded, as the value of supplies from the first day of April of a financial year up to the date when the person becomes liable for registration are excluded. So this 20 lakhs is excluded. Then on the next 30 lakhs turnover from July to September, he shall pay tax at 6%, because the composition scheme payer of services will pay tax at 6%, right? So he is paid 6%. By the end of July to September quarter, his turnover reaches 50 lakhs. How do you calculate this 50 lakh? For calculating the aggregate turnover, you will consider the turnover from April. But for the purpose of payment of taxes, previous turnover you will not consider, because he is now in the month of June. Whatever collections he's made on that, he is not collected GST, right? Because he was not supposed to register. So he's not registered. Going forward, from July to September, whatever turnover he does, he will collect the composition scheme at 1%. He will collect the GST tax. Now, to calculate this aggregate turnover, we're saying that when he should come out of composition scheme, for that, the total turnover has to be considered. So his total turnover in this case is how much? 20 plus 30 for this year. So once he's reached this 50 lakh, his composition limit is set. So he has taken the benefit of composition up to this 30 lakhs. That's all. And total turnover is 50 lakhs. So he cannot further proceed with composition. He has to convert his composition scheme registration to a normal registration. So up to 30 lakhs composition, and on balance 20 lakhs, he has to pay normal service tax, normal GST, which is from July to September quarter, he is required to pay normal tax at 18%. So on this 30 lakhs at composition rate of 6%, on this 20 lakhs, he can collect taxes from his customers also at the rate of 18%. Clear? Can I please explain validity I've done? So you told in previous session that I will come up with amendments regarding GTA, that in GTA service who has not paid CGST is removed in statutory update. Does it mean that GTA can opt under FCM at both 12% and 5%? So others, when I saw the statutory update, I'll just open. It says I didn't find that reference in this supplementary study material. Others, can you please let me know on which page you are referring? Because there it is not saying on this 6% change. I'll show you the study material. Okay, the material says supplier of service should be a GTA who has not paid CGST at 6%, which means if he has paid CGST at 6%, then it will always be forward charge. Otherwise, it will be reverse charge. It is in statutory update for November 2023. Yes, it is. I am reading the same statutory update for okay, I'll just take that in the break because I could only see the supplementary study material and not the statutory update. I'll just check on the statutory update and I'll get back to you then. There is no separate session for doubt solving. We have a problem solving. Then we'll take some problems and solve. If there is any doubts, you can ask it now, Ankit. Sir, under RCM, could a registered supplier be availed to ITC? Yes. So the importance of reverse charge is that you pay taxes under reverse charge and you can claim the ITC as well. So there is no bar in claiming the ITC. If you have registered person, you have paid taxes under reverse charge. Once you pay, you can claim the input tax credit. Aggregate turnover is for determining eligibility and turnover is for determining the tax liability. Aggregate turnover and taxable turnover. Aggregate turnover means the total turnover and taxable turnover is that turnover on which you will pay the tax. if under in case of goods transport agency, if under reverse charge recipient is not the specified recipient, then is it exempt? Yes, then it becomes exempt. So like how we had seen the charge, if the recipient is one of those 7 category of people or a registered person, then he pays under reverse charge, otherwise it is exempt itself. So this payment and the option to pay under forward charge or reverse charge are independent. So if a GTA says opts for this option of paying the forward charge, then he will pay at 12%, right? Now, if he pays at 12% on all his services, he will have to pay at 12%. Then he cannot claim this benefit that I will not pay to unregistered person. So if he opts to pay under this forward charge, then all of his services he will have to pay under this forward charge itself. Okay, so we can start with our session for today. So now today we are dealing with this topic of exemptions. So what is exemptions? We know charge, we know levy, we know that tax is to be changed, has to be charged. So charge provisions we understood, either forward charge or reverse charge. Now we'll deal with exemptions. One thing to be noted is if a services is exempt or if a goods is exempted, and if they say that services itself is coming under reverse charge, if the forward charge is exempted, it means the reverse charge also will be exempted. So no need to go into separate classification for exemptions for reverse charge. Like if the services of a GTA is exempted, like somebody was asking this question, right? Services of a GTA is exempted. If it is exempted, then it cannot be said that reverse charge has to be paid because the services itself is exempted. So reverse charge also will not apply. So the taxability of the services itself is not there, then the reverse charge also will not trigger. Okay. Now we'll understand the background chargeability of supply. All goods and services are chargeable, right? Except alcoholic liquor for human consumption and the 5 petroleum products, right? So this is what is the charge. That is supply which is not leviable to tax or non-taxable supply. Now these are the only 6 items. That is the 5 petroleum products and 1 alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside the scope of GST. Outside the scope of supply, everything else comes within the ambit of supply. Okay. Now further check if the goods or services are exempt. So main everything is taxable. Then from these taxable goods, 6 products has been removed. Right. Next step is on the balance goods. You check whether they are coming under exemption notification. If they are exempted, then no tax. If they're not under exemption, then everything is taxable. So your steps will determine whether anything is leviable to tax or not. First, you have to see whether it's a supply, right? We know the conditions for supply, that there should be a consideration and it should be in the course of furtherance of business. Of course, there are some exemptions over there, like import of services and Schedule 1 category goods. Once you come out of that, it is taxable. Then you see whether it is alcoholic liquor or petroleum products. No, if it is not that, then you come to the exemption. Whether they are coming under exemption, yes, then no tax. If they are not coming under exemption, then tax is payable, right? Now, what is the definition of exempt supply, right? There should be a definition, right? That's why section 2, subsection 47 of the CGST Act says, what is an exempt supply? Exempt supply means supply of any goods or services or both which attracts nil rate of tax. Okay, so we saw in that tariff, we saw in that notification for goods and notification of services that some products will have nil rate of tax, right? If it is nil rate of tax, that is also exempted, or it is wholly exempt. How it will be wholly exempt? Through an exemption notification. So if they are exempted through an exemption notification, it means they are wholly exempt. Then also they'll be treated as an exempt supply. And it also includes non-taxable supply. So all of these non-taxable supplies, what we have discussed, this petroleum products and alcoholic liquor, they are also classified as exempt supply through the definition of exempt supply, because it says that supply of any goods or services are both which attracts nil rate of tax or which is wholly exempt from tax and includes non-taxable supplies. So non-taxable supplies are also included in the definition of exempt supply. The implication of this are twofold. One is there is no confusion that whether non-taxable supply is exempt supply or non-exempt supply. Other thing is the definition of exempt supply is so very important because as we had discussed, the input tax credit is only if you make a supply which is taxable. If I buy something and my goods are exempted or my services is exempted, then the input tax credit has to be reversed, right? Why? Because I gave you as a government the credit that you will sell something out of this. If you don't sell, my chain is getting blocked. And my if I give you input tax credit, you are not charging any output tax. Then this input tax credit is getting stuck, right? So I will not give you the input tax credit. I will take this credit back. So you have to reverse the input tax credit. Now, on what you have to reverse the input tax credit? You have to reverse the input tax credit only on your exempt supplies. So if your supplies are exempted, then you have to reverse the input tax credit. Clear? Now, if I have both taxable supplies and exempted supplies, then what do? Then you take the total value of your exempt supplies. Now, in your total value of exempt supplies, what will you take? You will take all of this nil rated supply. You will take all of this supplies which are exempted through exemption notification, and you will also take non-taxable supply because then on that also you're not paying GST. Right? So take all of that value and claim the proportionate input tax credit, right? So when you go to ITC, you'll understand in further, but now understand that exempt supply definition includes three categories of supply. One, which is exempt through a nil rated supply, which is exempted through a exemption notification. And third is this all non-taxable supply or also exempt supply. Okay, so three categories of exempt supply are included in this definition of exempt supply. Now, exemption could be how? Exemption could be in terms of a notification. Now, this notification can be understood in four categories, where it is exempted through specified activities, or it is exempted through specified supplier, or it is exempted for specified recipients, or specified supplier and recipients both, right? So there could be various categories of exemption. It could be dependent on the supplier. If the supplier is a particular person, like the charitable organizations, if they are charitable organizations, then they will be exempt. Second could be in terms of recipients, which means if I am a recipient of specified category, then it will be exempted. Example would be where I am using this services of renting for my residential purpose. So it depends on the use. So it's a specified recipient. Then some is based on the specified activities or transactions, like healthcare services is dependent on the activities what is being performed. The specified activities are transactions, right? So these could be various cases on various probabilities how the exemption is given. Okay. Now, exempted from goods. Which are the goods which are exempted? Unpacked food grains, because if it is packed, then they are not exempted. They will be chargeable to tax. Gur, which is jaggery, milk, eggs, curd. So all of these basic food items, I would say, are exempted. You don't have to remember these goods exemption because goods exemption is not there for you, but just for your understanding, I'm presenting your lassi, unpacked paneer, unbranded natural honey, fresh fruits, health services, common salt, education services. So goods and certain services are exempted. Then there are some basic products which we consume, and that is taxable at 5%. Okay, so exemption from goods is not covered for your exam, but exemption from services is covered for your exam. That's why in this chapter we'll deal in detail on the exemption of services. Now, section 11 is the exemption section, which says that what are all the exemptions available. It says central or state government, based on the recommendation of the council on taxable goods or services or any specified description, if it is satisfied that it is necessary in the public interest, by notification exempt generally. So they will give a exemption. So section 11 says they will give a exemption. Now, what type of exemption? 11.1 says exemption could be a general exemption, which is absolute and not optional, or subject to certain conditions, where it is wholly exempt. Now, this general exemption could be from whole of the tax or part of the tax. Then through a special order also they can exempt. One is through a notification route. Second route is through notification through a exemption through an order, wherein by special order, goods can be exempted under exceptional circumstances explicitly specified in the order. So either for special reasons, we are giving this exemption. Through that also, they can exempt the whole of the tax. And where it considers necessary for the purpose of clarifying, right? So 11.1 says through notification, 11.2 says, 11 subsection 2 says through an order. Now 11.3 comes and says that wherever it is necessary for the purpose of clarification, we may give a notification. Now by this notification, we can insert an explanation and we can clarify that there is some confusion, and we will give you some clarification through inserting an explanation. Now this explanation will be what, as a case may be, within 1 year. Okay, within 1 year from the date of issue of this notification, or within issue of 1 year of issue of this order, we can come up with an explanation and give this clarification. Now this clarification will be through inserting an explanation, and this will have a retrospective effect, which means, now say exemption was given on 1st of January 2022. Now they can come up with an explanation saying in the month of June 2022 and say that we are giving this clarification. By they can add a explanation. Now this explanation will be retrospective from 1st of January 2022. That is the date of this notification. Clear? So when any exemption notification is issued, an explanation could be added within a period of 1 year to clarify the understanding of this exemption. Okay. Under GTA, GST is paid, right, at 6%, then RCM is not applicable, right, sir? Correct. Harshita. So if CGST is paid at 6 plus 6, 12%, then RCM is not applicable. Sir, I have a doubt that if a person is not registered under GST, okay, if a person is not registered under GST, then is he liable to pay tax to the government? Yes. If he is falling under one of those categories, then he will have to pay the GST. If he is not registered generally for his outward supplies, but if he is coming under the taxable supply because of this RCM notification, he will have to register and pay it. Under both forward charge and RCM, ITC is available. Yes, both under forward charge and reverse charge, ITC is available. And a recipient gets ITC from RCM. Yes, once he pays the tax, that means that gives the proof that the tax has been paid, and he can claim the ITC on that. Sir, exempted from GST means nil rate of GST? Yes, exempted from GST means various categories. Nil rate of GST is one category, exemption notification is second category, and third category is non-GST supplies. Okay. So that means clarification is given for goods which are already exempted. Yes, clarification is given for goods which are already exempted. So all kind of unpacked foods are exempted. Yes, all kinds of unpacked foods are exempted. So we will see in food grains that most of the food grains which are unpacked and which are used at the first level, which is from manufacture, from the farmer level, whatever comes, are all exempted. But then if there is some other activity they take, then it becomes taxable, which is the products, even if it is unpacked and if it is being marketed for end consumer, then that becomes taxable. Please explain 11.3 again. 11.3 says that any notifications we give for exemption, right? We give an exemption. Now this exemption notification is given, the goods and services become exempted. Now there is some doubt on this, right? When we actually implement it, there is some doubt in the industry. So to clarify this doubts of the industry, we will come up with the explanation, and they will insert this explanation to this exemption notification. So the effect of this explanation, because it's clarificatory in nature, it's beneficial for the trade, saying that this exemption was there. Now you didn't understand. We have inserted an explanation. So when they insert this explanation, this will have retrospective effect from the date of this original notification itself. So for exempt supply, will the supplier claim the ITC? See, when it is exempt supply, it means the supplier will not charge the GST. So there is no question of him claiming the ITC, because if he's a supplier who's supplying this exempt products, which is nil rate of tax, which means on the outward supply, he's not charging any GST. So there's no question of him claiming the ITC. He cannot claim the ITC. Exemptions could be two things. It means it's the absolute exemption, which means it is just given you as an exemption. No conditions are attached, right? Like they have given exemption for residential dwelling. So residential dwelling is purely exempted. So it's a absolute exemption. Second exemption could be this, which is conditional, right? When we said that housing, okay, not housing. Housing is okay, 5%, 1%. There they have given that it is 5%, 1% with the condition that input tax credit should not be claimed. Or this DTA saying that when you're supposed to not charge GST, but you should not claim ITC. So the recipient will pay. So these are the example of conditional exemption wherein some conditions are attached to your exemptions. Okay. Now we'll go with first head of exemption, right? So for better understanding, I have written it and I've presenting it so that you also can write this and remember it, because the exemption chapter is so very huge. So I would share this presentations. So I would recommend you also to write it so that it will be clearly stored in your memories that yes, this exemption is there. So picturization of this exemption will be a better way for you to understand the exemptions. Now, charitable and religious activities. Okay, firstly, we'll understand the broader picture, then we'll zoom in into each categories. So charitable and religious activities. Now, any activity which is done by a charitable or religious organization will become exempted. Now, N12AB. Okay, once this entity is registered under this head, then what are all the activities which gets exempted is to be seen. Charitable activities related to public health. Okay, public health by way of care, counseling of terminally ill, physically or severely or mentally disabled. Okay, public health by way of care or counseling of terminally ill people, which is physically or severely ill and or mentally disabled, which means they are HIV, AIDS infected by drugs or alcoholic addicts. So care or counseling of these people is exempted. So public health services means services of care or counseling of terminally ill, severely or physically or mentally disabled, right? That is HIV people, AIDS infected people, people who are infected with drugs or alcoholic addicts. These are care or counseling of such people is called as public health. Second, public awareness of preventive health, family planning or prevention of HIV infection, which means any kind of preventive health treatment, saying that any preventive treatment which we take before a disease comes, they are doing some preventive health like polio vaccination, right? Before anybody gets a polio, they are doing a preventive health kind of polio vaccinations have been given. So this kind of preventive health, family planning, prevention of HIV infection, public awareness of these topics is all treated as public health. So the first activity of this charitable activities is public health by way of care or counseling of these or public awareness of preventive health, family planning or prevention of HIV infection. Fine. So this is exempted. Public health. Second is advancement of religious, which what are we talking? We are talking of what is the meaning of charitable activities. So these activities only are exempted because we have a separate definition under Income Tax Act that is separate. Specifically here, there to all charitable activities under income tax, if they're registered under 12AA and if they're doing anything for the empowerment of the poor and things is exempted, but that definition cannot be used here. The definition what is given under the GST, only if these activities are done, then it is exempted. Okay, so public health we understood. Then any these charitable institution doing advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga. So if they are doing some activity for the advancement of the religion, advancement of the spirituality, like meditation, right? All of this is spirituality or advancement through yoga. Okay, all of this is exempted. Then specifically over here, we knew what is public health, we know what is advancement of religion. Then there is also another category which is advancement of educational program, skill development, right? Educational programs or skill development. You can do an educational program to them, or you could do a skill development of activities relating to abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children, right? Not for general schools or something like that. Advancement of educational programs specifically to abandoned children, orphan children, or homeless children. Or if I do any kind of educational program for physically or mentally abused or traumatized people, okay, which means they're physically abused, mentally abused, or they're traumatized, means their mental state is such that they don't respond. They're in a shock stage, or their brains are not developed to an extent that they can understand like a normal person. These are called as traumatized people. So any kind of educational program or skill development you do for these people is also exempted. Then if you're doing for prisoners, specifically where prisoners houses are there and they want to have their own living, and you're doing some kind of skill development, like you're doing some tailoring work for them, or you're doing some teaching them so that they can learn at the prisons itself, right? Then also it is exempted. Or persons above 65 years, okay, advancement of education program for people who are more than 65 years, which one elderly people, and they're staying in rural areas. If they're staying in urban areas, if you're doing it, then it will not be exempted. If you're doing something for these people who are elderly people, which means they're more than 65 years and they're staying in rural areas, मतलब जो गांव में रहते हैं, who are staying in villages, right? Only for them, if you're doing anything, and only for senior citizens, then it will be exempted, right? If you're doing in urban areas, will it be exempted even if more than 65 years? No, it will not be exempted, because these people in urban areas will not be coming under this exemption. Only people who are staying in rural areas will be coming under the exemption. Then if you are doing any activities of preservation of environment, watersheds, forests, or wildlife, which means any kind of environment protection I'm doing, any kind of preservation for lakes, water bodies, if I'm doing something, then that will get exempted. Any kind of watersheds, which means lakes, that's what I was explaining on watersheds. Then forests, anything for the protection of forest, or preservation of forest. Then preservation of wildlife animals, or wildlife plants and trees. All of this will be coming under the exemption. So understood the first part, charitable activities relating to public health, advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga, advancement of educational program for the abandoned, orphaned children, homeless children, physically, mentally abused, traumatized person, prisoners, persons above 65 years in rural area, or prevention of environment, watershed, forest, wildlife. It means the generally a notification has a date saying that this notification is issued on this date. The effect will be from today, from the day when the notification is issued. But in case of retrospective effect, it will be from the date, from the backdated, from backdating of the notification is called as a retrospective effect, which means it will have effect from the date prior to this, the date of notification. It will go to the date when the notification was passed. That is the clarification on retrospective effect. That is the meaning of retrospective effect. The effect of this is not from today, it is from a previous date. Okay, so these is charitable activities. Then second kind of activities what this charitable religious institutions can do is running of old age home. Now, important thing to note is you will not find all of this in one place in your study material. You will find in your different places. But to have an understanding of activities done by the charitable activities, I have compiled it and put it in one place so that it is easy for us to collect and recollect and remember it. Okay. So first was charitable activities. Second is old age homes. Now you have to have 100% clarity on what we are studying and what is the age limits. So here we saw it is 65 years for advancement of educational programs. So advancement of educational programs for person above 65 years residing in rural areas. Okay, there it is. The limit is 65 years. Now for old age homes, the limit is 60 years. Okay, here it is 65 years for educational programs. For old age homes, it is 60 years. Okay, for residents above 60 years. For non-residents, this will not apply because it is meant for residents only. So any old age home renting and for old age home running any old age home for residents above 60 years. Running old age homes for residents above 60 years, right? You have an old age home. Now you're giving it to people who want to stay there at their old age. Now they can come and stay there. Now it should be for residents above 60 years, and the consideration you're charging should not be high. It should be up to 25,000 rupees per month per person. Okay, so if you're collecting any amount, then that will be exempted. Now this value, if you're considered collecting say 50,000 rupees per month, then it will not be exempted. The value should be up to 25,000 rupees per month. So if I'm collecting 40,000, so up to 25,000, you give me exemption, on 15,000 you tax. No, that will not be considered. The term uses consideration up to 25,000 rupees per month per person. So up to 25,000 means where the value is up to 25,000 rupees, then it will be exempted. If it is above 25,000, no exemption at all, fully will be taxable. Now, what is this consideration? This consideration would be for boarding, lodging, and maintenance, which means for stay, and for the lodging, which means for the food, for the stay, and for maintenance. Overall, if you're collecting up to 25,000 rupees, then it is exempted, right? Now, note that you have similar old age homes, which is run by central government and state government. If they are collecting something, now we are studying on what? We are studying for charitable activities. So this charitable organizations doing, there the limit is 25,000. But if it is run by a central government and state government, that is also exempted. Why I'm saying is because old age home is there. No, old age home can be run by charitable organizations or it can be run by the central government. So central government exemptions, when we read, there also we'll see that central government providing services are fully exempted. But here there is condition that it should be for residents about 25, about 60 people, about 60 years, and up to 25,000 rupees as consideration is what is to be seen. Okay, running of old age homes. Fine. This we understood. Now, third part is service of rehabilitation professionals. Now, what are these rehabilitation professionals? That some rehabilitation has to be done. Somebody is traumatized or somebody is drug addict and he comes to a center called as a rehabilitation center. Now, this rehabilitation center we have already covered here, correct? Saying that rehabilitation is already covered. Terminally ill, severely mentally disabled, like alcoholic addicts. Now, who will provide these services? These are provided by rehabilitation professionals. Now, these rehabilitation professionals who provide this their services, which means they are doing rehabilitation for the patients. Now, when they charge to those organizations, that will be exempted because they are providing services to an entity registered under 12AA, or providing services to medical institutions or establishments, or they're providing to educational institutions. When they're providing the services to schools, then also it's exempted. Or they're providing the services to rehabilitation services, which is established by the central government, state government, or UT, which means Union Territory. CG means central government, SG means state government, and UT means Union Territory. So these Rehabilitation professionals providing services to private organizations will be taxable, but if they are providing to an entity registered under 12AA, to medical institutions or establishments, medical establishments like hospitals, if they are providing, then it will be exempted. And if they are providing to schools, like for schools also run the study for teaching for this for rehabilitation people. So all of this therapy, rehabilitation, counseling, whatever these rehabilitation professionals provide, those are all exempted. There is no condition for old age homes run by government. Yeah, there is no conditions. Clear on this? Then what else than the charitable or religious organizations do? They give off their places for rent. Now, if they give off their places for rent, is it exempted? Yes, that is also exempted. Renting of presence of premises. Then presence means surrounding areas. जो बाजू में है, like I have a temple, within the temple vicinities, that is called the presence. मतलब if I am having an organization like a temple, and within the organization I have some shops being let out, so this is within the or closer in the proximity of the temple. So renting of this presence area of religious place which is meant for general public. They say you have small shops for puja samagris, for flowers, for selling of books. Now renting of these places, it will be exempted. Yes, it will be exempted if I have some room given off, right? Like if you go to Tirupati, you'll have small rooms given by the TTD, Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. The trust itself gives some places. Now they can give room rent, they can give premise 9999 for the Kalyan Mantapam. If they are charging up to that, it will be exempted. And if they are giving any shops and the rent they are collecting up to 999, then it will be exempted. So anything above that, it will be completely taxable. But if they're charging nominal rent, right, the nominal rent is defined here. So if you're giving a shop and you're collecting rent of say 6,000 rupees per month, then it will be exempted. But if you collect say 11,000 rupees, the whole 11 will be taxable. And room rent also, the capping is there. If you're giving any room for the devotees to come and stay there, and you're collecting room rent of 1,000 rupees, then it will be taxable because the limit is 999. Up to 999, if you're collecting something, then it will be exempted. Okay. Room rent up to 999 per day. Premises of Kalyan Mantapam up to 9,999 and shops up to 9,999. So easy to remember, 999 and 499, right? Then note, renting of presence we saw. Now non-12AA services, but related to 12AA, which means these people need not get registered under 12AA, but they provide services at these locations, like Pandit services, who does a person who conducts religious ceremony, right? His services are provided to general public, are provided to temple, and any consideration he receives, he need not be registered under 12AA, but he is one person who provides this religious ceremony, it will be exempted. Then hostel accommodation by a trust, which is not under 12AA. Now, if they're giving it something to general public, right? It is for any hotels also up to 999 is exempted, right? Hostel accommodation or hotel accommodation up to 999 is exempted. Okay. So this is the exemption for the presence, right? Now, Pandit services can be provided anywhere, and hostel accommodation can be provided by a non-charitable organization also. Then what else is exempted? Training or coaching in recreational activities relating to sports. So if there's a charitable organization, they're providing sports activities, only sports activities if they provide, then it will be exempted. Or else training or coaching in recreational activities relating to arts and culture is also exempt by any person, not necessarily charitable person. So for charitable person, charitable activity, what is the condition? Charitable activities providing any recreational activities relating to sports is exempted, but non-charitable organizations, if they are providing any services in relation to arts and culture, like any kind of painting, artwork, or cultural activities, like Bharatnatyam, Kathakali services, if they're providing any training and coaching, so those arts and culture need not be charitable organizations. Charitable organizations only sports. So understand, by any person who are providing any arts and culture, not necessarily registered and as a charitable organizations, but sports activities necessarily should be provided by a charitable organization itself. Okay, so this is exemption on training and coaching. Then religious pilgrimage. Religious pilgrimage provided by KMVNL, Kumaon Mandal Vikas Nigam Limited, is exempted, or by a Hajj committee or state Hajj committee, right? Any kind of Hajj committee, it could be a central Hajj committee or a state Hajj committee. If they are taking pilgrimage for Hajj and bringing them back, they are providing this services, that will be exempted. So only these two organization services are exempted. All other organizations who are providing any religious trip will be taxable. Other thing is yoga. In yoga, what else is there? They have any residential programs, right? For conducting yoga, that will also be exempted if the camp is for primarily advancement of religion, spirituality, or yoga. So advancement of religious spirituality of yoga will also cover the residential programs which is covered, which is conducted. So this is the whole charitable activities which is exempted. Rehabilitation services and recreational services. Rehabilitation service is little different. Recreation is different. Recreation means anything apart from the normal study, normal curriculum, normal school, colleges. उसके अलावा extra activities is called as recreational activities. Rehabilitation activities is a little different. Rehabilitation is when you're doing something for your own self in terms of rehabilitation of a person who is not being normal. Like if a person is infected with polio, if a person is infected with drugs, you are trying to rehabilitate him, bring him back to normalcy. That is rehabilitation. ओके, सो एक बार हिंदी में समझा देंगे कि जो चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होती है उनको क्या एग्जेम्पशंस मिलती है. तो चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होती है उनको पब्लिक हेल्थ सर्विसेज पे एग्जेम्पशन मिलता है. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, ये चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस 12AA या 12AB ऑफ द इनकम टैक्स में रजिस्टर होनी चाहिए. अगर एक बार वो रजिस्टर्ड है तब हर चीज एग्जेम्प्टेड है नहीं, उसमें भी स्पेसिफिकेशंस है कि वो पब्लिक हेल्थ कर रहे होंगे. पब्लिक हेल्थ फॉर काउंसलिंग ऑफ टर्मिनली इल, जो बीमार लोग हैं, मतलब कितने बीमार है, सेवरली फिजिकली मेंटली अब्यूज लोग हैं, जो उनकी केयर और काउंसलिंग करते हैं, वो एग्जेम्पशन है. फिर एडवांसमेंट ऑफ रिलीजन, स्पिरिचुअलिटी और योगा, जैसे ये कल्चरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस क्या करते हैं, प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ करते हैं या फिर रिलीजन को बढ़ावा देते हैं, स्पिरिचुअलिटी करते हैं, योगा करते हैं, वो एग्जेम्पशन रहेगा. फिर एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज, किन के लिए, अबैंडन चिल्ड्रन, जो बच्चे घर से, जो ऑर्फनेज होते हैं, जो ये बोलते हैं ना, जिनके माँ बाप नहीं रहते हैं, होमलेस बिना घर के रहते हैं, उनके लिए कुछ चलाते हैं संस्था, तो फिर वो वहां पे एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम, स्किल डेवलपमेंट, वो एग्जेम्पशन रहेगा. और फिजिकली मेंटली ट्रॉमेटाइज पीपल, जिनका दिमागी हालत इतना खराब हो गया, बिगड़ गया है, उनके लिए आप कुछ करते हो तो एग्जेम्पशन है. या प्रिजनर्स, ठीक है, जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जनरल स्कूल चलाते हैं, वो एग्जेम्पशन रहेगा नहीं, क्योंकि नॉर्मल स्कूल्स एग्जेम्पशन नहीं मिलेंगे. स्पेशली ये बच्चों के लिए, होमलेस बच्चों के लिए, ऑर्फनेज बच्चों के लिए, अबैंडन बच्चों के लिए एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा. मतलब स्कूल्स वगैरह टैक्सेबल है नहीं, स्कूल्स वगैरह भी एग्जेम्प्टेड है, लेकिन वो एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज में एग्जेम्प्ट रह जाएंगे. यहाँ पे चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अगर ये करती है तो फिर ये एग्जेम्प्टेड रहेगी. फिर प्रिजनर्स के लिए, जो कैदी लोग हैं, उनके लिए आप कुछ एजुकेशन प्रोवाइड करते हो, वो एग्जेम्प्टेड रहेगा. या फिर आप अगर बूढ़े लोग जो 65 साल से ज्यादा है लेकिन शहर में नहीं, गांव में है, रूरल एरियाज में है, उनको एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा. करते हो आप, जैसे कुछ प्रोग्राम चलाते हो फॉर प्रिवेंटिंग ऑफ वाटर एनवायरमेंट, वाटर शेड्स, फॉरेस्ट, वाइल्ड लाइफ, तो वो भी एग्जेम्प्ट हो जाएंगे. सेकेंड एग्जेम्पशन क्या हो जाएगा, ओल्ड एज होम्स, जहां पे आप बूढ़े लोगों के लिए आश्रम, वृद्धाश्रम या वृद्धाश्रम जो चलाते हैं, उनका एज लिमिट क्या होना चाहिए, मोर देन 60 ईयर्स पर्सन चलेगा। 25,000 के नीचे आप जब लेते हो तब एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा, 25,000 के ज्यादा होगा तो एग्जेम्पशन नहीं मिलेगा। एक और चीज है, अगर ये ओल्ड एज होम सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट चलाती है तो पूरा एग्जेम्पशन मिलेगा उनको, वहां पे लिमिट नहीं है और एज का भी कुछ कंडीशन नहीं है। थर्ड है सर्विसेज बाय रिहैबिलिटेशन प्रोफेशनल्स। जैसे हमने कहा कि प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ और रिहैबिलिटेशन वगैरह होते हैं, तो वहां पे सर्विस प्रोवाइड करने के लिए कौन आते हैं, रिहैबिलिटेशन प्रोफेशनल्स आते हैं, जो रिहैबिलिटेशन प्रोफेशनल्स पढ़ाई कर दिए रहेंगे। अब इनका सर्विसेज एग्जेम्प्टेड रहेगा जब ये रिहैबिलिटेशन सर्विसेज में प्रोवाइड करते हैं, या फिर हॉस्पिटल्स में प्रोवाइड करते हैं, स्कूल्स में सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करते हैं, रिहैबिलिटेशन सर्विसेज में प्रोवाइड करते हैं, तब उनके सर्विसेज एग्जेम्प्ट रहते हैं। थर्ड है रेंटिंग। जब ये चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जगह देती है, अगर वो जगह देके रेंट लेती है, जैसे रूम्स देती है, रूम्स के लिए 1,000 रुपए के नीचे एग्जेम्प्टेड रहता है। शॉप्स वगैरह के लिए 1,000 रुपए के लिए 10,000 रुपए के नीचे अगर कुछ कलेक्ट करती है तब एग्जेम्पशन होता है। और शादी के लिए जब मंडप देते हैं अप टू 9,999 मतलब अप टू 10,000 रुपीज के नीचे जो होता है उसमें एग्जेम्पशन मिलता है। अगर 10,000 भी चार्ज कर दिया तो टैक्सेबल लग जाएगा। देन पंडित, जो पंडित पूजा करते हैं या फिर कुछ तरह के होम हवन करते हैं, उनके सर्विसेज हमेशा एग्जेम्प्ट है, उनके कुछ लिमिट नहीं है। फिर हॉस्टल अकोमोडेशन हम देखते हैं कि अपार्ट फ्रॉम चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ट्रस्ट प्रोवाइड करती है, तो ये ट्रस्ट अगर हॉस्टल प्रोवाइड करती है और अप टू 999 पर डे के रेट से कुछ कलेक्ट करती है तब भी एग्जेम्प्टेड मिल जाता है। फिर ट्रेनिंग कोचिंग, अगर ये चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कुछ रिक्रिएशनल सर्विस प्रोवाइड करती है, मतलब स्पोर्ट्स ट्रेनिंग के लिए कुछ करती है तो वो एग्जेम्प्टेड रह जाएंगे। और आर्ट्स एंड कल्चर्स के जो ट्रेनिंग प्रोवाइड करते हैं वो 12AA में रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है, फिर भी वो एग्जेम्प्ट हो रहा है, क्योंकि आर्ट्स एंड कल्चर सिर्फ इन दोनों के लिए एग्जेम्पशन मिलते हैं, ओके, बाय एनी पर्सन, नॉट नेसेसरली चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। और फिर हमने देखा कि पिलग्रिमेज सर्विसेज प्रोवाइडेड बाय मानसरोवर यात्रा के लिए KMVNL एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड बनाई गई है, जो वो ही तो आपको मानसरोवर की यात्रा करा सकते हैं, उनके सर्विसेज भी एग्जेम्प्टेड है। और जो हज कमेटी जो आपको हज लेके जाती है, पूरा ट्रिप करा के फिर लेके आते हैं, वो हज कमेटी का अप्रूवल आपको प्रोसेस फॉलो करना पड़ता है, तो ये हज कमेटी के सर्विसेज भी एग्जेम्प्टेड रहते हैं। ओके, सो विल अंडरस्टैंड दिस important definitions again. Services, जो exemption, whatever exemptions are specified, services by an entity registered under 12AA by way of charitable activities. So we understood in the first part what are the charitable activities. The exemption note line says that services by an entity registered under 12AA or 12AB by way of charitable activities. Then services by specified organizations for a religious pilgrimage. So these people only do religious pilgrimage. That is Hajj committee, state Hajj committee, or the central Hajj committee, or KMVN. Then services by way of training or coaching in recreational activities relating to arts or culture, or sports by a charitable activity, by a charitable entity. So if you see, only sports by a charitable entity is covered, arts and culture can be provided by anybody. Then charitable activities relating to, now what is the definition of charitable activities? Preventive health by way of care or counseling of terminally ill or persons with severe physical or mental disability, which means they should be terminally ill, not normal illness. Terminally ill, which means the cure for that takes longer duration, is called as a terminally ill people. Like cancer is a terminally ill, which means the recovery is very long process. That is the example of a terminally illness. Then persons affected with HIV or AIDS, persons addicted or a dependence forming substance such as narcotic drugs or alcohol, or public awareness of preventive health, family planning, or prevention of HIV infection. Okay. Then advancement of religious spirituality or yoga. Why yoga I've underlined? Because earlier it was not there. This was amended and included later on. So this is yoga is also included under charitable activities. Then advancement of educational program or skill development relating to abandoned, orphaned, or homeless children, physically or mentally abused and traumatized people, prisoners, and persons above 65 years residing in rural area. Then preservation of environment. Now within environment, what all is covered? Watershed, forests, and wildlife. Okay, so these are the charitable activities. You'll have to remember this so that you can apply it practically and you can apply it in your questions also. Services exempt from tax. Services by persons by way of conduct of religious ceremony. So this is another exemption, that is of the Pandit services. Renting of presence. Okay, presence within the surrounding or within the area where this charitable or the religious places are located. Church, temple, gurudwara. Besides this, those temples, besides these temples, the shops, the rooms, the kalyan mantapams will be exempted. Okay, where the charges are, so their exemption shall not apply, which means below this it will be exempted, above this will be taxable. So that's why to remember we have this 999 and 9999. 999 for renting of rooms and 9999 for renting of premises, and 9999 for renting of the shops also is there. Okay. Specific pointers to be noted in terms of this charitable activities is services provided by charitable trust of specified services are exempted, but very important. Now, whatever discussion we have done is exemption provided by these charitable trust and charitable organization of these services. But when you provide services to these charitable trusts, they are not exempt, they will be taxable. Okay, so if a charitable trust is there, they're doing very good thing. Now their services are exempted. Now they take services of professionals, they take services of, they buy other goods and stuff. So can they go and tell these organizations, boss, I am a charitable organization, you cannot charge GST? Is it possible? No, that is not possible. Their activities are exempted, but our activities to them is taxable only. Normal rate of tax will apply. Okay. All of these exemptions are exempt if only if charitable institutions are registered under 12AA. Yes, like I had said, all should be registered under 12AA. Like specific liners are given wherein this hostel services are provided by non-AA entity also, it is exempted, but the value capping is there up to 999 rupees. Then it will be available. Then arts and cultures, we saw art and culture provided by non-12AA is also covered. Understood, Darshan? Vaishali sir, presence area is defined in kilometers, not defined within the area. Matlab, it cannot be that I am in my compound or within my boundary or within my reach, whatever is there. Like they have big premises, right? They're not small. Now within their premises, they have something within their things, then it will be exempted. Like if it is their presence means within, if the temple is located here and they have Kalyana Mandapam 10 kilometers from there, then that will not be considered as a presence. Presence within the surrounding, say closer next gate, and it is for the usage of the temple, that will be covered, that will be treated as presence. Neighborhood is the meaning of presence. So services provided by this charitable trust of specified services are exempted, but services provided to these trusts are not exempt and would be completely taxable. Renting of presence of a religious place for general public, which means what? Activities other than the above will be taxable irrespective of the manner or name in which it is collected, which means renting of presence or religious place will be exempted. Now donation collected for with an understanding to do promotional activity of donor, such donation will be liable to GST, which means we have seen, no? Now we have seen in the charge provision that what is the exemption for this donations. The donation is exempted if you collect it as a donation. But if you collect donation and if there is some quid pro quo, which means you have to do some marketing activities for the other person, then this donations will be taxable. Right? So we cannot say that all the donations collected, if I do some sale of goods and I collect donations, is it taxable or exempted? It will be taxable because I'm collecting in the name of donation, but I'm selling books. If books are taxable, then this donation also will be taxable. So we'll have to see what is the nature of this donation. If it's a pure donation and it is done by this charitable activities based on our understanding, what we had seen, that they are doing some advancement of education, then it will be exempted. But many organizations collect donations and they sell books, then that will not be treated as exempted, that will be taxable. So the nature of the activity is important more than the name. Just the name donation doesn't make it exempted. The activity makes it exempted or taxable. But if there is no quid pro quo, then it's a pure donation. Clear with this, sir, that it should be a pure donation. If it's not a pure donation, then it will be taxable. Clear with charitable organizations? Let's move to the next exemption then. The next exemption is relation to agriculture. Okay, so you should have a basic understanding of agriculture, right? So we know first is the agriculture produce, second is the agriculture activities. First is this agriculture produce. All agriculture produce will be exempted, right? Like all the food grains, pulses, dal, wheat, rice, all of this is exempted. But within these, so these are all exemption of the goods. So exemption of goods will be covered separately in your finals, but understand that all food products which is grown will be exempted. So farmer doesn't have to register and he doesn't have to pay GST. But after the farming is happened, after the farmer is given the goods, there is some process which happens. So these processing, like the rice, what we see is also not a raw material, not a raw rice what we get. It comes in as a form of paddy. So the paddy is exempted. Paddy gets converted into rice in the rice mills. So any activity done at the rice mills, and when they sell it, it will be taxable. Okay, so the basic activities are exempted, but further activities which makes it marketable, which makes it sellable, are all taxable. So basic agriculture produce are exempted. Then registration, agriculturist means a person who cultivates is a agriculturist. Now agriculturist, no registrations. He does not have to take registration. To the what extent? To the extent of produce out of this cultivation. So whatever produce he does, and from his cultivation, whatever he sells, on that he does not have to register. But if he does something else, if he gives his say tractor for rent, then on that tax is there. If he gives his land for rent, then it tax is there. So agriculturists per se is, you cannot say is not taxable. What activity he does. So GST goes beyond the terminologies like renting of vacant land. Okay, vacant land. Renting of vacant land is also exempted. Basically, when renting of vacant land for use of agriculture, like if I'm giving a land, I'm giving it for parking, then it is taxable, Baba. But if I'm giving a vacant land for cultivating of agriculture, if the other person is making use of that land for agriculture produce, then it is exempted. It can be with or without structure. Like there could be a warehouse, there could be a go down for storing of these products, which is incidental to use, which means cultivation is made, tools are being used, and some structure is there, some kind of go down is there, some kind of small house is there for making use of agriculture thing only, not for completely for commercial purposes. For agriculture thing, if you're using it and there should be a watchman for that, there is some small building, fine. Then the whole thing renting will be exempted. Okay, so renting of vacant land with or without structure will be exempted. Services relating to cultivation of plants. Now we'll come to the services part. Services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of life forms of animals, except horse for food, fiber, fuel, and raw materials. So basically, agriculture mein what is exempted? All services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of life form of animals, right? All forms of animals cultivation is exempted except horse. Okay, so horses will not be considered as exempted. Except horses, all other life forms will be exempted. Now they could be cultivated for fuel, for fiber of plants and animals. They can be cultivated for food, fiber, plant fiber, for fuel or raw materials. All of that will be exempted. Right? Now further going in detail, renting of vacant land, then renting of agro machine is also exempted. Right? The land is exempted, the tractors, the tillers, okay, lot of agri machines which have been used, like for splitting of the food grains, some special machinery is used, which is used in agriculture. So all of these agri machines is also exempted. So basically, agriculture, the food should not be costly. That's the reason all of this is exempted. Agriculture is exempted. The food products is exempted. The land which you give for rent is exempted. The agriculture machine called as agro machines for cultivation or for sowing or for laying of the seeds, all of these agro machines are also exempted. Now, what is agriculture operations? The definition of agriculture operations would be cultivation, harvesting, threshing, plant protection, testing. Means cultivation, cultivating, growing of crops, harvesting. So after the crops are grown, cutting is called harvesting. Threshing means some kind of a special process where the food grains are being sowed, wherein all the husk has to be removed. That is called the process of threshing. Then plant protection, putting off pesticides, all those pesticides, putting off some kind of food products so that the the agriculture produce are not getting destroyed. So that is plant protection. Then testing, whether these products are right or wrong. That is called testing. All of this is necessary. So this way, these agriculture operations are exempted. All of these agriculture operations are exempted. Then supply of farm labor. A person is not having land, but he's giving his labor services. Or there's a contractor who is finding out all the people who can do work for another agriculturist. So this supply of farm labor is also exempted. So see the magnitude of exemption. The agriculture produce without is exempted, but all incidental activities of this are also exempted. So anybody who is providing the laborers for doing this agriculture activities, that is also exempted. Then the process carried out at agriculture farm, which is cutting, harvesting, sorting, and grading, right? The cutting services, harvesting services, sorting of good quality with the bad quality, then taking off all the stones from the harvested products, harvested food grains is also possible. Then grading, small grade, big grade, various grading they have to do. Their sorting of that is also exempted, but which does not alter the essential character, but makes it marketable for primary market, which means the essential characters are intact. If it's a dal, it remains dal, right? We'll come up with some more examples where the food quality or the food product or the seeds product, the harvested grains product is retained. So the does not alter the essential character and makes it marketable only for primary market, which means I'm packaging it. I am doing some activity wherein I have to take it in kind of bags, big bags, and bring it to the primary market. Primary market means the APMC yards, which I bring it to the yards. Up to that stage, if I'm doing some activity, that's called as a primary market. Those are exempted. Those processes will be exempted. Then warehousing. Warehousing means where the food grains are stored. Okay. Now warehousing, what all is exempted? Warehousing per se is exempted. Warehousing of agriculture produce and rice. Warehousing for agriculture produce would include what? Includes pisciculture, which means breeding of sericulture, rearing of silkworms is also covered. Floriculture means ornamental flowers, that is also covered, right? So we'll start with what all warehousing is covered. Warehousing of agriculture produce and rice. Is rice agriculture produce? Yes, sir. No, sir. Rice is not agriculture produce. Paddy is agriculture produce. Conversion of rice, paddy to rice. So rice doesn't become an agriculture produce, but rice is also a staple food. So warehousing of agriculture produce and rice is exempted. Okay. Then warehousing of minor forest produce like tamarind bamboo, like which is coming from the forests, like tamarind bamboos are railway and vessel. So a GTA service, a GTA providing services to a registered person of agriculture produce is exempt. Okay, so we'll see under GTA that this service is also exempt. So transportation of agriculture produce by a road, through a goods transport agency, railways, and ship is all exempted. Now, agriculture, other exemption which is covered is agriculture extension services, which means apart from these basic agriculture services, if you are doing any agriculture extension services, means providing any trainings, melas. The second thing is melas, which means providing any kind of exhibitions or running any Kisan clubs, wherein we are teaching the scientific knowledge to agriculture produce, are you giving basic trainings to them? That is called as agriculture extension service. That is also exempted. Then artificial insemination, which means other than horses, all other livestock. Which means you're doing the artificial insemination so that the growth is better or the younger ones develop faster. That is called artificial insemination. This artificial insemination in all kinds of animals is exempted other than horse, right? So we saw horses wherever there, it is not exempted. Other than horse, everything will be exempted. Then what is taxable? The process which alters the essential characters of agriculture produce. Potato bana diya, potato to potato chips is altering the essential character. It was a potato, now it's becoming a potato chips. Like tomato ketchup, it was a tomato, now we are processing and making a tomato ketchup is not exempted, it is taxable. The process which makes the agriculture produce marketable in retail market, right? Pineapple is there, pineapple is exempted as a fruit. Now, drying of this pineapple, you cut the pineapples and dry it for future use. That's not a primary product. You're making it marketable in the retail market in the later part, or putting the pineapples in a tin, right? Then you sell it. So all that activities is taxable, not exempted. So what we understood is the primary agriculture activities is exempted, but secondary activities will become taxable. Ensure that there's nothing complicated in this. Once you go through these presentation, you can remember this very easily. Any doubts till now? Okay, so let's understand this agriculture with this chart we understood. Now we understood the specific exemptions like line wise how it is given in the study material. Agriculture related services by way of loading, unloading, packaging, storing or warehousing of rice, right? Because agriculture produce also there, rice is also exempted. Services by way of warehousing of minor forest produce, like we saw tamarind, tobacco, tamarind, bamboo, all of these are minor forest products, that is also exempted. Services by way of storage or warehousing of cereals, pulses, fruits, nuts and vegetables, spices, copra is dry coconut, sugarcane, jaggery, raw vegetable fibers such as cotton, flax, jute, indigo, unmanufactured tobacco, betel leaves, tendu leaves, coffee and tea. So many products. These are all services because we are talking of services. Within services, service of warehousing of these products. Okay, storage or warehousing of these products is exempted. Services by way of fumigation, that is poisonous gases, what is being spread out. Carrying out of intermediate production process such as job work. So job working also is exempted of agriculture products, which is plants, okay, in relation to cultivation plants and rearing of live forms of animal. You rear the animals, you grow the animals, except rearing of horses. For what purpose? For food, fiber, fuel, raw material or other similar products are agriculture produce. These are also exempted. Agriculture services relating to cultivation of plants and rearing of all life of form of animals except horse. For food, fiber, fuel, raw material, or other similar products are produced by way of agriculture operations, right? We covered this agriculture operations directly related to production of agriculture produce. Indirectly related secondary activities will be taxable, primary activities will be exempted. Supply of farm labor, processes carried out at agriculture farm, including cooling or bulk packaging and such like operations which do not alter the essential character. Important, it will not impact the essential character of agriculture produce, will be treated as agriculture related services. Then renting or leasing of agriculture machinery or vacant land with or without a structure, loading, unloading, packaging, storing, or warehousing of agriculture produce. Agriculture extension services, we understood this. What is agriculture extension service? Running any camps, melas, and things like that. Service by way of agriculture produce marketing committee. This is that APMC committee or board, or services provided by a commission agent for sale or purchase of agriculture produce. Then services by way of a fumigation in a warehouse or of agriculture produce. So this is the raw text of the exemption. This we have understood in a pictorial representation. Sir, poultry farm is taxable or exempted. Poultry farming is also exempted because rearing of animals is exempted. And in temples like Vaishno Devi, horses is taxable. Yes, there it is. Rearing of horses is taxable, but the Tonga services is transportation of passengers. So in transportation passengers, you will see that transportation by auto and this horses is exempted. Okay, what is taxable? We meant is rearing of these horses is taxable. Rearing of other animals will be exempted, like how you asked poultry farm. Rearing of these horses and selling those horses is generally not done. It's generally done for kind of race horses and things like that. That's why it is taxable. But your example of good in Vaishno Devi use horses, so that's a transportation service that is exempted. Okay. So we have further discussion on this agriculture related services. We'll take a break of 10 minutes here and we'll continue our discussion on agriculture produce. So it's 7:25 now. Let's meet at 7:35. Okay. So we discussed on this agriculture related services. So the questions which have come up is agriculture produce such as fruits like apple, orange are exempted. Yes, those products are agriculture produce, so those are exempted. Then renting of warehouse for storage of agriculture produce exempt or not? It is exempt. So what I'm saying is primarily agriculture produce is exempt and rice is also exempt. Agriculture produce plus rice. Sir, if land is rented other than for purpose of plantation farming and warehouse located in the farm is rented for storage of food grain, then how would be the taxability? If land is rented other than for plantation or farming. So if land is rented for other than plantation and farming, that will be taxable, right? So if land is taxable, now warehouse. Warehousing, if you give now, warehousing does become a separate and this land has become separate. Land, you have given an example that it is for other than planting and formation, right? It is taxable. Now, this warehousing, you have to see in this warehousing, are you giving this warehouse for renting of agriculture produce? Then it is exempt. If you're giving for renting of non-agriculture produce, then it will be taxable. But consider a third scenario where it's a land and the warehouse. But warehouse is not like a warehouse, it's like a small place in the land. Then that land, if you're giving for agriculture produce, then it will be exempted. Okay, so there are some questions which I have. Green tea, tea for consumption and processing of green beans, all of this are different activities. So the tea, what we get, if you see the tea manufacturing process, it is very different. The tea leaves are taken. So tea leaves is the primary produce. From the tea leaves, they crush it, put it for drying, put it under rollers, perfume it, put some scents, put some flavors to it, and then the tea is dried up. That's when we get our tea, black color tea, what we get. So basically that green color tea, not the green tea, which is in green tea, the green tea leaves is the agriculture produce. Tea, what we consume, the tea powder is not a primarily agriculture produce, that is taken into tea factories and converted. So this tea is not an agriculture produce. Similarly, coffee beans. Coffee beans is, you get two types of coffee beans. From the coffee beans, they pluck it. Again, the drying process happens, then you get the coffee beans. So this coffee beans also, and then the coffee powder comes in. So the raw coffee which comes from the plantation is exempted. This process of converting is taxable. Then processing of sugarcane. Sugarcane is a primary produce. Converting it into sugar and sugar jaggery changes the essential character. So this is also not an agriculture produce. Then pulses. There is a explanation which is given on pulses. Pulses, which is commonly known as dal, are obtained when after dehusking, matlab the husk has to be removed, that's called dehusking, or splitting. Sorry, sir. Okay, अभी ठीक है. The pulses, which is commonly known as dal, is obtained by the dal what we consume is not what is produced from the plant. So it's not agriculture produce, because from the agriculture produce, de-husking has to happen and splitting has to happen for some dals. Like the green dal, you have full dal or the half dal. So that splitting has to happen. So the process of de-husking first and splitting is usually not carried out by the farmers at their farm level, but they are taken by the pulse millers, right? The pulse millers take it, do the de-husking process and do the splitting process. Therefore, these pulses are not agriculture produce. The whole pulse grain such as whole gram, rajma are covered in the definition of agriculture produce, but these dehusked dals are not covered within the definition of agriculture produce. The importance of this is that storage of agriculture produce, when we said, will cover only whole gram and rajma, but storage of these pulses will not be covered there. So that will be taxable. So you have to very clearly understood whether it's an agriculture produce or no. So this dals are not agriculture produce. And similarly, paddy is an agriculture produce, rice is not an agriculture produce. But these agriculture produce and only this rice storage will be exempted. Storage, warehousing of these pulses will be taxable. Okay. Now, milling of paddy to rice, like I was saying that how the paddy is getting milled to rice, it's very interesting to understand and listen to this video so that we know the process. Just give me one moment.
Now, see you will take.
हाँ एक वीडियो ओपन हो रहा है, अभी ओपन हो रहा है. ओके.
So, what is rice milling process? Melt rice, brand and the cleaning rice. Let's discuss rice mill functioning and steps in rice milling process from pre-cleaning to the packaging. First step is rice pre-cleaning process. It always comes up having a lot of external material, soil, seed, and these external things need to be removed before taking the hulling process so that the efficiency of the hull as well as the milling would not get affected. Second step is the rice cleaning process. Brown rice is actually produced by removing the husk from rough paddy rice. Paddy is fed into the gap between two double rollers that are rotating at the and in opposite direction. Compression provides the economic force to cause between paddy and the roller. After the roller, the resulting mixture of brown rice to the husk that is being removed is treated to the anterior so that they get is paddy separation. There is paddy, brown rice, and we have to remove this paddy. This is done by paddy separators. Paddy separators are fundamentally separate. Separation is achieved by fluidization, causing them to brown rice drain to the bottom of butterflies, whereas lighter paddy rice to the top. Next step is bran removal or punch. Bran removal is the process in which long and bran layers are actively removed from the rice bran, leaving the epithelium largely intact and with a desired surface. The objective is to completely remove bran layer in the most cost-effective manner without damage to the endosperm. Several mechanisms can be applied mechanically. These include tearing, friction, cutting, grinding, and back. Modern rice milling systems can be classified into two categories of milling equipment. friction type, grinding type. Friction type machine primarily friction. These machines carry blades are wrapped vigorously. Other are big of friction. People also milling the and employ mainly grinding. They use low pressure and high temperatures. Rice milling grinding impact force time contact the broken of broken rice from the whole grain. This is mainly done by intergrators. Broken grains are lifted by the rice like a rotary motion. At some point, they will fall from the grain with lifted to stand at the front of the. So this is all about rice milling process.
So that was how uh, the differentiation between a rice and a paddy is brought in. So what we see is a process which goes in through completely over there in the factories, in the rice milling millers, and then we get the rice. So there's a complete process. So the primarily paddy is agriculture produce. Rice is not an agriculture produce. Rice is a activity which is done after the agriculture produce goes into the millers, and that whole process what we see happens. Loading and unloading of agriculture produce for sending them to market is also exempted. Yeah. So this loading and unloading happens at the warehousing. So all this warehousing activities, what you have seen, it doesn't mean only storage in the warehouse. It's not only renting. That's the difference between renting and warehousing. Renting is only giving that on rent, but then they use the word warehousing. It means loading and unloading, everything will be covered in the warehousing, and warehousing is exempted. Nursery and greenhouses are exempted. They've said this, no, the definition includes floriculture also. So to that extent, it will get exempted. So in illustration 1, it is given that renting of warehouse for storage of agriculture produce is not exempt. Renting of warehouse. So renting of warehouse. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Warehousing is exempted. So if I give this warehouse for the activity of storage of rices, it's exempted, right? But if for this warehouse I'm buying from somebody else, okay, this place is not mine, and he is giving me this place for rent, that is not exempted, is what is said. So renting of warehouse, okay, the renting of the warehouse is taxable, but the warehouse per se is exempted. So I am paying to the landlord, he will charge me GST. What I am charging to my customers for the warehouse activity is exempt. Now, what is agriculture produce, non-agriculture produce? To understand this more clearly, fruits are agriculture produce, whereas dried or processed fruits like this, fruits they are drying these days, they dry it and give it, or they process the fruits and give it, right? Like the tinned pineapple, like pineapple and tinned pineapple. These are all, tinned pineapple is a non-agriculture produce. Pineapple per se is an agriculture produce. Tea leaves, we have discussed this. Tea leaves is an agriculture produce. The tea or the tea powder, what we get is a non-agriculture produce. Similarly, coffee beans. Coffee beans per se is a agriculture produce. The processed coffee beans and the powdered coffee beans is a non-agriculture produce. Sugarcane and jaggery. Then whole pulse grains such as whole gram and rajma is agriculture produce. Pulses, dehusk are split, and the dal is a non-agriculture produce. Paddy again is an agriculture produce, and rice is a non-agri produce. Right? So that was on agriculture produce, agriculture activities, so activities of agriculturists. So before we get into the next exemption, any queries till now? Can we proceed with the next exemption? Arya Shanbag, what is your query? What you didn't understand specifically? Fruit juices are agriculture or non-agriculture? Fruit juices are actually non-agriculture because agriculture produces only the fruits, then it gets processed. But that processing is again coming under food services. So restaurants, when you go, you see when you drink a fruit juice, they charge you GST, right? So that is a secondary activity, not a primarily agriculture produce. If I give my warehouse on rent to someone, no, you cannot give your warehouse on rent. Generally, warehouse services is complete services. Now, if your warehouse itself, say, it's a possibility that in your warehouse, you give some space for warehousing of agriculture produce. Fine, that is exempted. Now, you have some more space. Now, you're giving it to Amazon, saying that you can place your goods. So, when you're supplying this other place for Amazon, that will become taxable. So warehousing for agriculture produce is exempted. Warehousing for other commercial purpose will be taxable. Now warehousing, some part you're giving for the automobile company for renting. Okay, they're using the space. That will again be taxable. So that much of space which you're charging for agriculture produce is exempted. So the basic idea is the agriculture produce should not be costly and the prices should not go up. That's the reason agriculture produce only will be exempted. Everything else will be taxable. So wheat for consumer is exempted or no? Wheat comes in two process. Again, it has a barn, then it's getting processed. So wheat also what we get is converted from the barn, from the outer thing husk, and then it is converted. So wheat is also taxable. But understand, it is a non-agriculture produce. But whether it's exempted or taxable, we have to see the rate. So in the rate, GST rate for the wheat, if they're said exempted. So one is they will tell product wise, and then they will sell agriculture product produce wise. So wheat, if we see there, if it is exempted, then it will become exempted. So we cannot judge saying that it is a non-agriculture produce, so it will be taxable. If it is non-agriculture produce, and in the GST exemption notification for the product category, if they're given it as exempt, then it can still be exempted. So most of these products will be under exempted. Vaishali, or I'll correct myself, wheat will be exempted because these are all primarily products where we consume food. So it is not an agriculture produce. So warehousing of the wheat will be taxable, but the wheat per se will be exempted because it is exempted through the exemption for the goods notification. Taxability of renting of warehouse is dependent upon the item storage. Correct. It is dependent on the item storage. Irrespective of where the warehouse is located. Correct. Irrespective of where the warehouse is located, the item what is stored, that will decide whether it is exempted or not. Okay, clear. So no more queries in this. So we'll proceed with educational services. So till now we covered charitable organizations, right, and agriculture produce. So we understood till now that the services provided by charitable organizations, services provided by agriculture is exempted, but the services provided to charitable organizations, services provided to a farmer is all taxable. Like a chartered accountant files the income tax return of an agriculturist. Agriculturist will say, no, I'm not liable to GST. You don't charge me GST. but it is your respective, from your perspective, you're an agriculturist, your services are exempted. My services as a chartered accountant are not exempted, and nowhere I get the exemption that services provided to an agriculturist should be exempted. So I don't get the benefit of exemption. If I file your IIT returns and charge you the consideration on that, I have to pay you GST. I have to charge you GST and you have to pay me. But till now, we saw services provided to these exempted units are not exempted, they are taxable. But in educational services, we'll see that services provided to an educational institution is also exempted to a large extent, right? So that's the reason there is bifurcation over here. Education services which are exempt is services which is received by an educational institution and services provided by an educational institution. So first we'll cover by, because we know what does educational institution do. It provides us the educational services. So services provided by an educational services, by an educational institution to its students, faculty, and staff. Okay, it provides, that's where it gets. So services provided to its students, faculty, and staff, okay, is exempted. So basically educational service, what is there is exempted. Then conduct of entrance exam against entrance fees. Conduct of entrance examination, right? Before coming into college, you have to write some entrance exam. Coming into some kind of degree, going from 12th standard to your board, you have to write some entrance exams. So conducting of entrance examination against this entrance fees is also exempted. The school fees, the college fees, whatever we pay, that is also exempted. Okay, so primarily services provided by education institution are exempted. Then services provided to an educational institution, which is received by an educational institution. Services provided by is covered here. And your services provided to an educational institution is covered here. So what are the services provided to an educational institution? Transportation of students, faculty, and staff of the eligible educational institution. So what is eligible education institution? Let's understand that first so that we are not confused. Educational institution means an institution providing services by way of preschool education and education up to higher secondary school. Preschool is before the grade 1. Before the grade 1, whatever educational institutions provided by kindergartens, Montessori's, play homes, all of that, what do they provide? They provide educational services. So all of that, them are educational institution. So preschool trainings and education from first standard till higher secondary school, 10th or 12th, up till which you have the schooling, up to that is covered as educational institution. Then education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification recognized by any law for the time being in force. So यहाँ पे schools cover हो गए, यहाँ पे colleges cover हो जाएंगे. Education as a part of curriculum for obtaining a qualification which is recognized by any law for the time being in force. So you go to college, you get a degree, right? So the degree is given by some law, is given by a qualification, and this qualification degree is recognized, given by the university. Chartered accountancy is recognized by the ICAI. Lawyers are recognized by the Bar Council. So all of this, what you get a education which is part of a curriculum for obtaining a qualification. You get a qualification, and this qualification is recognized by any law for the time being in force, is covered. So schools are covered, colleges are covered. But if you go to some coaching classes, okay, private coaching classes, and they don't give any kind of a qualification, right? They just give you kind of training and you take the tuitions and come back. So you're not getting a qualification there, and their tuitions are not recognized by law. So that coaching institution, whatever services it is charging you, the service fees, the tuition fees, that will be taxable. They have to collect GST on that. Okay. Then, but services provided by the ICAI will be exempted because they're providing you an education for obtaining a qualification. You're getting a qualification here. Then education as a part of an approved vocational education course. Apart from qualification, if you're doing anything else which is a part of an approved vocational education course, that will be exempted. What is the approved vocational education course? A course which is run by an industrial training institute. So we have this industrial training institution, ITI, or an ITC, Industrial Training Center, which is affiliated to the National Council for Vocational Training. So it could be a ITI or any center, but that center should be affiliated to the National Council for Vocational Training or State Council for Vocational Training, which is offering courses in the designated trades, which is notified under the Apprentice Act. Okay, so some courses are tied up with the Apprentice Act. So if they are tied up and providing such services like carpentry services, tailoring services, repair services. So these are the services where without like a person is not able to concentrate on his studies, he's not good in the education, then he could go to this vocational training and learn certain skills. So this institution which is tied up should not just that I give a training, I'll get exempted. My center should be affiliated to the National Council for Vocational Training, or it could be a state council for vocational training also. You have to cover a course which is covered under Apprenticeship Act, and it should be approved by these institutions. Okay. Third is a modular employable skill course, which is approved by the NCVT, National Council for Vocational Training, run by a person registered with the Director General of Training, Ministry of Skill Development. So this is another approval wherein you give employable skill courses, like after your studies, how to present for interview, how to be more presentable, how to improve your soft skills. These are provided by this employable skill course, which is approved by NCNT, and they provide some specific training so that you can be employable. So that service is also exempted. Fine. So what we understood, educational institution means schools, preschools, schools, colleges, and education as a part of vocational training courses, vocational education courses. Now we understood educational institution. Yes. So this is the services. What services received by educational institution will be exempted? Transportation of students, faculty, and staff of the eligible educational institution. Then catering services, food services, whatever you're providing, including any midday meal scheme sponsored by the government. If the government is sponsoring, then you don't have to pay GST on that. Now this catering service you're providing to a school, now the money is coming to you from the government. So this catering services, what you're providing is exempted. It says including, means apart from midday meal scheme also, if you have any other thing where you are providing the catering service to a school, then the caterer need not charge, because what are we relating to? Services received by an educational institution, which means if I am providing some services to this educational institution. Okay. Then third is security or cleaning or housekeeping services in such educational institution. The sweeper services, if there's a contractor, if it's an individual person, then they'll pay salary. That is always exempted. But if there's a contractor, security contractor is there, cleaning contractor is there, the security services, cleaning services provided by this contractor to me as a private entity, he will charge me GST. But if he's providing to this educational institution, then he will not charge GST. Okay. Then services relating to admission to such institution, which means services relating to admission or conduct of examination. Okay. Now we said no entrance examination. The colleges or the school gives that we are very busy. We are appointing an agency who will carry on this whole process of getting the application form, screening it, conducting interview, conducting examination, and filtering it and telling us, okay, these are the eligible students. So these services provided is also exempted. Okay. Relating to admission to such institution or conduct of examination. Then supply of online educational journals or periodicals. So online journal companies are there. Now they're providing journals and periodicals to these educational institutions, that will be exempted. But what exemption is available to whom, we have to understand. The first three are available not to all, like transportation, catering, and security services are not available to vocational training institutions. They're exempted only to preschool and higher secondary school. So if they're providing services to a college, then they have to charge. So very careful. Some services are to preschool and higher secondary school only, but services relating to admission are for all. That is including colleges also. And supply of online journals to schools and higher secondary schools are taxable, but supply of online periodical journals or periodicals to higher secondary institutions, that is colleges, will be exempted. So this clarity you will not get in a study material. It is there in various places. So if you read this with this illustration, with the representation, then you will understand it in a much better manner. Okay, so first three are to a preschool. Fourth services, admission are available to preschool and available to colleges also. And colleges also get this another benefit of supply of online educational journals or periodicals. Okay. Bhumika, a question on exemption. Green tea leaves is exempted. Green tea, Tata tea, what I drink, Lipton green tea, that is taxable. That is equivalent to normal tea only. Not that green tea I'm drinking, so it will be exempted, and you're drinking a normal tea, it will be taxable. No, no. Both these teas are teas only. My color is green, his color is red. Canteen is also exempted. Yes. Food to student or owner of canteen purchase material from market for canteen. No, that is not exempted. The canteen person who buys it. So they've not said canteen, they've said catering. Canteen is where a shop is there in a school or college and they're selling some things, right? That is a canteen. That is equivalent to a outside shop. Inside or outside, it is within the school. That is canteen, that is taxable. But we are talking about catering. Catering means I have to serve food to my children. Now I cannot prepare. I'm telling a food agency to prepare it and come and bring and serve the students. So they prepare food, not packets of food. They prepare foods, come here and give me the items so that I can serve it to my students. So when I serve this food to my students, I'm taking a catering service. This catering service provider need not charge me GST. Will a person who's supplying to this catering company, like I'm supplying plates to this catering company, I'm supplying food to this catering company, should I charge GST? Yes, I should charge GST to him. When the catering company prepares the food, okay, converts the raw material, manufactures the food. Food cannot be manufactured, but processes the food and gives me the food to eat. He will not charge me GST. Services provided for annual day in school are exempted or no? Services provided for annual day. Okay. Like what are the services you're providing for annual day? Is it conducting or is it some kind of food you're providing? If you're providing catering services at the annual day, then it is exempted. But if you're providing any other services, then I don't see any exemption here. Okay, educational institution, very clear. Additional thing is very simple to understand. And apart from services provided by educational institution, services received by an educational institution will also be exempted. Then let's move to healthcare services. Healthcare services means what? Hospital and doctor services. Healthcare services, services provided by healthcare services. What is healthcare service? We have to understand first. Okay. Services by way of healthcare service. Now, what is this healthcare service? Healthcare service means any service by way of diagnosis, treatment, or care. Diagnosis means any diagnostic centers, X-ray, scans, what we take, those are diagnosis centers. those services are also exempted. Treatment or care, which means the doctor, the nurses, the hospital, what services they provide, they are also exempted. Services by way of diagnostic, treatment, or care of illness, injury, deformity, abnormality, or pregnancy. Any kind of illness, sickness, injury, accident has happened. Deformity means there is a imbalance from the birth. From the birth, one person's leg is short, one person is tall. One leg is short, one leg is tall. So there is a deformity in his birth. For that, you go to a hospital and they do some treatment. Or abnormality. There is abnormality, some eyes are squint, some lips are purged, any kind of abnormality or pregnancy, all of that is all covered. So everything what is done at the hospital majorly is covered. And which hospital, any services which is covered by any recognized system of medicine, which is allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, whatever hospitals we go, generally that's allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani, all of this is covered. So any kind of medical practice which is recognized in India. Reiki is another method, acupressure is another method, and other Chinese medicine. So these are not recognized. Specifically, you have to understand that these are not recognized cases. Reiki, Chinese medicine, acupressure is not recognized. Only what is recognized is allopathy, yoga, naturopathy, Ayurveda, homeopathy, Siddha, and Unani. So only this 7 are recognized. Anything else other than the 7, any kind of new medicine technology which comes in, is not recognized, right? What else is covered under healthcare services? Transportation of patient to and from the clinical institution. Means what? Ambulance services. So ambulance services are also exempted. Transportation of passengers to and from the clinical establishment is exempted. It does not include hair transplant, because hair transplant you do for cosmetic reasons, saying that you don't have hairs, you put the hairs. It's not a healthcare service, not a thing of predominant nature, of a primary healthcare nature. For a beautification, you do the healthcare. So hair transplant is not covered. Cosmetic plastic surgery is also not covered. What is this cosmetic plastic surgery? My nose is bent, so I want to make it straight. My shape of the nose is not nice, so I want to take. So any kind of beautification is taxable. But what is exempted is restoration or reconstructive anatomy functions of a body. Any kind of a defects, abnormality, injury, or trauma is exempt. Like there's a defect from birth, I said perched lips, or other kind of injury. Because of injury, some face is gone, and the doctor says you have to bring it to normal, otherwise your skin or your nerves will not work. So because of that injury, something has happened. Because of some trauma, something has happened. The doctor suggests that plastic surgery is required, not for beautification, but for normal reasons. Then it will be exempted. Okay, so that understood the meaning of healthcare service. Now, healthcare service can be these categories. Now, healthcare service can be provided by whom? It could be provided by a clinical establishment. Clinical establishment means a hospital, a nursing home, diagnostic services, investigative services. All of this clinical establishment is exempted. Then it should be a services provided by hospitals are exempted. Services provided by authorized medical practitioners means who are registered with any council of recognized system of medicine, which means under Ayurveda, you'll go to the Siddha board. If it is a medical doctor, then you go to Medical Center of India. KIMS, you'll go to the All India Institute of Management Studies. All AIMS, you'll go, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. So where it is recognized by the organization which is holding it. Like for CA, you have ICA. Like that, for medical practitioners, you have medical boards. If you are getting registered with any of those councils, okay, then only you will be treated as a medical practitioner. So any doctor providing in his individual capacity, or providing in a hospital, or a doctor providing services to a hospital, is all exempted. And medical professional having requisite qualification. So you should have that requisite qualification. Then paramedics is also covered. Now, who are paramedics? Who are these trained healthcare professionals, like the staff, nursing staff, nurses, what we see, physiotherapists, these technicians who take this X-ray. They are called as paramedics. They need to have this paramedics qualification. So these paramedics and doctors, all of those are also exempted. Then services by way of ambulance, transportation of patients is also exempted. Services by veterinary clinic. Who are this veterinary clinic? The clinic which is for the hospitals for animals is a veterinary clinic in relation to healthcare of animals and birds. Then operation of biomedical waste treatment. So when you go to a doctor, he gives you an injection, right? We are so very worried of that injection that we don't know where he throws. But after rubbing the injection, you see backside, there'll be color covers. In one color cover, he has to put the syringe. In one color cover, he has to put the cotton. In one color cover, he has to put the other waste. So they have to bifurcate the waste because these waste cannot be thrown in the dustbin. It is not a normal waste. It is a hazardous waste. So it cannot be thrown in the dustbin just like that. So they'll put it in separate covers and give it to a waste treatment facility. These are all called as biomedical wastes. This biomedical waste, it should be treated by them in the appropriate way, or they have to give it to a biomedical waste treatment agency who will take it and do the appropriate process as per the law. So these operators of this biomedical waste treatment facilities, when they charge these hospitals, these doctors, that is also exempted. Then by cord blood banks. What is this cord blood banks? So when a child is born, you have this umbilical cord. This cord has so much cells in it that if you store it, they say that it can be used for various curing of various diseases when the child grows up. So that's why there is a new technology called as cord blood banks. So they store the cord, the stem cells, which is there in the cord blood banks, cord bloods. So they take it and store it. So this preservation of stem cells and other ancillary services in relation to preservation of cord blood banks is exempted. Now there is some circulars. Okay, what are the circulars say, which is very, very important in this aspect is room rent for inpatients, right? So we said 1 minute. Healthcare services is exempted. So will this room rent be exempted? Yes, room rents are also exempted because patients will come to rooms and they will stay there, and as soon as their treatment is over, they will leave the rooms. So that's why room rent is exempted because they come only for healthcare services. So room rents to inpatient is exempted. So if there's any other extra rooms which they're giving for outpatients, like patient's relative, then it will be taxable. But room rent for inpatients is exempted. Along with inpatient, one patient, they allow free. Yes, that will be covered under inpatients because there's no separate charge for that. That is covered as a part of the room rent to inpatient itself. Doctors, hospital are exempted. Senior doctors or consultants provide services to the hospital. That is also exempt. Then amount charged by the hospitals, including renting, retention money and fees to doctors, right? I am a hospital, I collect the money and I give the fees to the doctors. So that also is exempted because ultimately it is collecting for healthcare service only and providing to a doctor. Ultimately, what is the hospital providing? Hospital is providing a healthcare service, that is also exempt. Food to inpatients. Hospital I went, I stayed, I did my treatment. Now hospital is providing me food and charging me something. Now for that food, is it taxable? We understood the the meaning of composite supply and mixed supply. So composite supply is supply where it is a primary one supply is there and you have other ancillary supply. So you're not going to the hospital to have food. You have gone to the hospital to have your treatment. So once you have done your treatment there, the treatment you have done there. Now this having food is a composite supply wherein treatment healthcare service is the main supply and food is an ancillary supply. So since the main supply is exempted, the food also will be exempted. So any food provided to inpatients at their bed is taxable. Now, if they provide this food to outsiders, then it will be taxable. Food at canteen, that will be taxable. Like outside caterer to hospital will be taxable. because they will provide food to the patients. Now they are not manufacturing food; they're telling an outsider to provide this food. The outsider providing food to the hospital is taxable. It's not exempted, because what we understood, services provided by a healthcare is exempted. Services provided to healthcare is not exempted. So any services provided by a caterer is taxable. Food to unadmitted patients is taxable. Food to visitors or attendants is taxable. So what happens to the medicine which is sold in the pharmaceutical of a hospital? Is it taxable or exempt? Any kind of this services of healthcare in relation to canteen services is taxable. Then what do you think about my question? This medicines, is it taxable or no? Taxable, because it's not a primary service of hospital. Correct. So it is taxable, because selling of medicines to an individual patients, which is not a healthcare services. So medicines are taxable. Medicines are not as they're part of, no, they're not a healthcare services. So medicine is not a part of healthcare services. In a healthcare services, we have not covered it is not covered that the definition of medicines is there. So medicines are taxable. So hospital may, if they are along with the bill, they buy some medicines and give it, then it becomes exempted because it is a part of a whole hospital service. But if it is sold by the pharmacy, then it becomes taxable. Any service other than healthcare services, like renting of shops within the hospital, you have some shops, you have some restaurants, you have some canteen, you have some auditorium you give to students, you give to some other colleges for utilization, that will be taxable. Then you have some medicine or pharmaceutical companies who display some ads over there, for which they give some stand. So any display of advertisement will be taxable. So basically, healthcare services per se will be taxable. Anything else will be exempt. Main healthcare will be exempted. Everything else will be taxable. Hospital machine. What is hospital machine? Okay, Adarsh, your question on, yeah, I'll upload this material, don't worry. On your question on this reverse charge on charges by a GTA. Now, if GTA, what we discussed was that if it's charging 6%, it is always be forward charge. Now that 6% is gone. Now it says only goods transport agency. Now a goods transport agency who has not paid GST at 6% has gone. Earlier, who has not paid at the 6% was under forward charge. Reverse charge was always 5%. Now it's only just GTA. So now what does that mean? That GTA, what we said was only 12% he should charge under, it should always be under forward charge. That is not there. So GTA can charge now at any rate. Thanks for the clarification, Adarsh, for bringing up. There is a statutory highlight. I will share the screen. Yeah. Earlier it was GTA who has not paid CGST at 6%. Now this is gone. Now it just says Goods Transport Agency, which means that a GTA providing at 12% can still be under reverse charge. So, but the rate for me is still as a reverse charge, it is 5%. But the supplier, a GTA, can now charge either 12% or 5%. If he charges at 5%, he cannot claim the credit. If he charges at 12%, he can claim the credit. Thanks for bringing this, Adarsh. Now, hope your query is clear. So GTA can now charge either 12 or 5%. In service provided by educational institutions, who is exempted from tax? Services provided by educational institutions, the educational institution is exempted. Colleges, schools, pre-primary schools, and vocational training institutions, all of these educational institutions, when they charge the fees, they collect the fees, they are exempted. Machine like CT scan machine, okay. For these CT scan machines, is it taxable? I am a manufacturer of a CT scan. I sell my CT scan to a hospital or a diagnosis center. So they have to pay GST to me. That is not exempted. When they perform tests on that CT scan, that will be exempted. But my sale of this machinery, hospital machineries to them will be taxable. Any more questions? Services provided to charitable and educational institutions are taxable, but by them are exempted. Correct. Your understanding is correct. Now, with respect to healthcare, also there is an amendment. Healthcare services were exempted earlier completely with effect from 8 July 2022. Healthcare services by way of clinical establishment, a medical practitioner, or paramedics. However, nothing in this entry shall apply to services provided by a clinical establishment by way of providing room other than a ICU, CCU, intensive cardiac special rooms. Where the special rooms are there, those will be continued to exempt. A normal room wherein the charges exceed 5,000 rupees per day to a person receiving healthcare services will be taxable. So earlier healthcare was completely taxable, completely exempted. Now it is completely exempted. But if the room rent is more than 5,000 rupees, from them they have to collect the GST. That to which room? Normal room. ICU, CCU, that will anyways be costly. That will continue to be exempted. Normal rooms, if it is more than 5,000 rupees, then that will be taxable. Then a lot of amendments are there. So once we discuss our basic understanding, then we'll read the amendment so that we get to know what are all the changes there. Okay, so we'll continue on Wednesday. We'll start with these amendments and then we'll discuss on the other exemptions. Thank you very much.
Done, sir.
Yes, sir.